What's going on, everybody? Doc After Gamer Guys back for a little bit more Escape from Tarkov action and bringing a little bit of news today, talking about a recent tweet that Battlestate Games put out about ballistic changes, which we knew were coming in 12.12. We've gotten a lot more info about what that looks like, so we're going to dive into that in this quick, short video, hopefully. I also would just want to spend a little bit of time talking about 12.12, what's going to be kind of the big things that we would expect to see inside of it, and then again, we'll talk a little bit kind of, I'll say the general rumor mill sort of consensus on when we expect that patch to be. So, got a lot to cover. Let's jump into it. All right, so first things first here, I want to spend some time talking about Battlestate Games put out a bunch of different ammo trajectory adjustments for pretty much every class of ammo in the game. You're going to see up here at the top, just to really quickly go over these, they all look very, very similar. Obviously, the trajectories for each bullet are going to be a little bit different, which is good. But just really focus in on a couple of key points here. First, you get to see what type of ammo. I think it's very safe to assume that if they're doing 5.56 ammo, and while they listed 855, this is going to be effective across the broad spectrum of 545 or 555, 556 by 45 ammo. So your 855A1, your 995 should have all very similar properties. Certainly we'll need to do some testing once 12.12 comes out just to confirm all of these things, but I think that's a really safe assumption. Basically what you're seeing here, and you can obviously pretty clearly read this, you had your old trajectory, which is currently what's in the game now, what we're dealing with, and then your new trajectory, what is going to be implemented when patch 12.12 comes out. So we'll get into talk about that a little bit. You're going to see on the new trajectory that there is kind of a shaded line. It goes from red into kind of like a brownish, down into a yellow, and then into a green color. What this is actually describing is that as this bullet travels and gets farther distance from basically from you, it's going to essentially do less damage and less pen. Now, it is currently in the game that happens, although not to the, I'll say, the drastic level or increased level that we're going to see with 12.12. There's a lot of testing that's going to need to be done with this, but I think this is a good change, and we'll see with some of the ammos, especially later on, it's going to make your weapon choice, your ammo choice, essentially what you're bringing into the raid and into a specific map, a little bit more important than just always running maybe the same gun. Certainly certain guns are still going to do better. Your 7.62 variants are probably still going to be pretty good at both close and medium ranges, but certain other guns like your 9mm, you're probably not essentially going to want to take to shoreline or some of your longer range reserve maps, because you may not be as effective there. So that is a really interesting, again, a lot of testing is going to need to be done with this, and you're going to see it obviously varies again by ammunition type, but I think this is a really good change and should make for some more interesting engagements. Certainly, headshots are going to be very important at longer ranges. Obviously, you can make the argument very rarely are you shooting out to 300 meters, but even you can see at 150 meters or 200 meters, which for some maps is pretty reasonable distances to get into, that there is going to, again, be a damage and a pen drop off, which will be important and certainly factor into survivability, and again a little bit more specific to weapon choice and ammo choice that you're bringing into raid. In addition, here you're just going to see the drop, so basically how the flight path of the bullet is going to be, and then respectively there's going to be distance in meters down here that outlines the graph. And again, I'll just quickly run through these. There's basically every ammo type that I've been able to see. You've got your 3.66, you've got your PS ammo, your 5.45 by 39, you've got your SP6, your 9 by 39 here, which is really interesting, and I think probably one of the really significant ballistics changes here. You've got your 9mm here, which doesn't look like a drastic change, but is enough that I think is going to be important, especially when you consider that this one goes out to 100 meters. You've got your 45 here, your 7.62 by 51, 7.62 by 39. This one is actually really interesting because I didn't realize that it was as drastic as it is, which makes a little bit more sense. especially for some recent raids that I've been in on a couple of different series, both our hardcore and our escape series. But so I don't want to spend too much time on any of these specifically, but I will just again highlight that these are some really interesting changes. Let me give you the TLDR up front on what I think this is going to do. I think it's going to do two things. I think it's going to, one, make accuracy of weapons to point of aim, especially if you are used to adjusting your 0 point, because again, you see up here it's 100-meter zeroing. Each of these are respectively different if you get to some of the smaller caliber weapons. What I think this is going to do is it's going to make the game feel a little bit more accurate, especially if you're used to zeroing your weapon. I've been getting into a lot of habit recently, especially this wipe, of setting my 0 on pretty much all of my optics to 100 meters. That makes close range engagements feel, good. Like I'm certainly not missing. And then a little bit longer range, kind of medium range distances, feels like I can just put my scope, my sight, right on target, right on a headshot, right on the chest, and I'm going to be able to get some hits with that. I also think it's going to be interesting to see how these ballistic changes also play into weapon durability and what effect on accuracy that has when you're, again, using that weapon. So again, scav weapons and different things. I think this will hopefully balance some of that out. I think that was one of the frustrations for this wipe was, again, you're using a scav gun that you picked up either off of a scav or from a scav run, and you're shooting out to some distance. You might be zeroed appropriately, and you're just wildly missing. Durability should certainly affect that, but I think obviously that maybe compounding with these different bullet trajectories that we have now in the game probably really made that way more severe than maybe that it was intended. I'm just personally speaking from opinion here. But that's something I'm thinking about as we're getting these. All in all, I think this is going to be a good change. I think that the changes to damage and pen at distance are going to be really good. I think you're still going to have instances where you get shot and you die out of nowhere from a really long range. But hopefully it turns into feeling a little bit more reasonable as far as the type of ammo killing you and those different things. I like that change. I also think, especially when it comes to some of these smaller caliber, your 9mm, and especially your 9x39, this always felt like there was something really crazy here. The old trajectory you can see is like your close range, which is essentially where you want to use this gun, was just all over the place. You'd be on target and you'd just be missing wildly, like way over, a target's head, especially if you're trying to get a headshot. This, I think, is going to bring it way better back into alignment, but then also still penalize this weapon for trying to be used at range, which I think certainly needs to happen, and I think is going to be, again, a good change. And I think the same thing with some of these, not a huge change here. 9mm always felt really accurate, but it's a high velocity round. So that makes sense. But again, the drop off here, this essentially getting pretty, I don't want to say useless because it's not going to be useless, but essentially getting really diminished at 100 meters makes a lot of sense. It's going to lose a lot of that velocity. It's going to lose a lot of that pen. And I think it should be a better way of kind of filtering and maybe almost even changing up the meta a little bit when it comes to, again, what type of weapon are you using in what situation. Again, you shouldn't be on reserve kind of sniping with your vector. That just doesn't make a whole lot of sense. So that feels like a good overall change, especially if these adjustments have a similar effect. And again, same thing here, new trajectory. It looks like 45 certainly going to get a little bit of a buff just from a accuracy standpoint, which is great. But again, you got a little bit of that drop off here. I didn't expect to see a whole lot of change here. I always figure M62 by 51 is going to be pretty good, and it looks like it is. It looks like, again, accuracy at closer ranges, which can sometimes be a problem, is going to get adjusted here, which looks really nice. Same thing with your 7.62 by 39 ammo here. This looks really good. I like this. I felt this. I've certainly felt this old trajectory recently. I think it was on our hardcore series which is taking some shots, and I just was like not hitting a target that was pretty dang close to me. And maybe it makes sense now why. I was probably missing high. And then your 7.62 by 25 that pretty much nobody uses is also going to get a little bit of an adjustment. So overall, I think this is going to be really good. Certainly take a look at these if you have a Twitter. Again, I think the baseline here is going to be good. It's going to be good. There's, again, I've said this a couple times, a lot of testing that's going to need to go into this to figure out exactly what the impacts for things like this are and how much of a change it is. But I think, again, this is going to be good overall, and hopefully the weapons and the ammo just feel a little bit better, again, as we get into 12.12. So shifting back really quick, a couple other things that I just want to spend a little bit of time talking about. What can we expect for 12.12, and when can we expect it? The general kind of community consensus at this point is that with 12.12 there's going to be a wipe. I think that's pretty well established at this point. I would be very surprised if that was not the case. In addition to that, it seems like we're really gearing up, especially with some pretty specific information that we just got related to Ballistic Changes, which is a big change that we're going to see for 12.12, in addition to some other features that are being tested and run through. I would very much expect that we will see a holiday time frame 12.12 patch come out. Usually right around that Christmas time frame. Seems like a really good time. I love it from the perspective of, especially if you do it maybe the week before or like the week of Christmas. A lot of people have time off. That can put a lot of hype into the game. People might even be picking it up for Christmas. So it's like, it feels like a really good time. Also with New Year's, people get an opportunity to have some time off, both from school and from work. So kudos to BSG if they end up doing that. They've done that. I think last year we got the patch and the wipe at that same time frame. So we shall see. There's going to be a couple of key markers that we'll know if that is coming. We'll start to get a kind of more of a flood of events. Probably start to see, or we'll see a couple, maybe weekend events. Those will maybe turn into some weekly events, and then, obviously as we get really close to wipe, things on the flea market will go crazy. Stuff will become really either accessible or inaccessible, and then bosses and scavs and raiders and a whole bunch of things will hopefully be doing some fun stuff, because the end of wipe is always a really good time. What I think that means is you have a couple of weeks from the time this is going up. I think you have a couple of weeks. Get your last task done. Get whatever you want to go do. Maybe start spending a little bit of your money, going into labs a little bit, getting an opportunity to learn it if you can. Maybe play some other maps where you can afford to lose a little bit of gear. Like I said, maybe take that with a grain of salt, because there's no confirmation that that's going to be when the patch is. It just makes sense that we're getting there. Talking about what else is going to be big in 12.12. Obviously, we're going to get Lighthouse. So we've talked in previous videos and shown some screenshots. That is going to be really fun, I think. New content, new map is always a great thing, so very excited for that. VoIP, they have said, is on its way, so we should be getting that in the iteration, probably the iteration of it, which is good. I expect some, obviously, bug fixes and other things. We know that some weapons are going to be included with 12.12 as well. I think the big one that everybody's hoping for and is excited about is the Scar. I know I am. I think it's going to give the 308 MDR a run for its money and be a really interesting one. So very excited about that. In addition, well, I'm sure there's other guns I know that I'm forgetting. We'll get some additional attachments. They've been doing some screenshots and some other stuff. So I think we'll have just more customization as we get in. I also expect with 12.12, especially with the introduction of Lighthouse, that we're going to see some adjustments to quests. We're going to see some adjustments to some of these other things. Probably the biggest one that has a lot of folks maybe kind of nervous is going to be inertia. How that works in the game, what that's going to mean for player movement. I believe it's being tested on the ETS at this point. And I don't have a lot of comments to say about it, other than I'm just going to keep an open mind. And I think it's going to be interesting. I do think that it is going to maybe slow the game down a little bit, especially later wipe for those folks that are running really heavy gear or getting a lot of gear. I think it's going to make that very interesting. It feels like a balancing perspective, although it is important to understand, and we'll obviously have to test it when it does come, is how that is going to affect and when it's going to affect. I can think back to weight changes and what they did with weight and stamina, specifically for arm and leg stamina. There was certainly an adjustment, but after the current system compared to the old system, I like the current system. A lot of it makes sense. There's a lot of, kind of trade-off decisions, but it definitely made the game feel a little bit more tactical. I think Inertia has the opportunity to do that if implemented correctly. So, as always, there's going to be adjustments. So that's the one thing. If this is maybe your first wipe or you're coming back for a little bit, I would say give it a little bit of time, because we have to test those things out. There's a test server to test some of it, but broad player feedback is also something that they do listen to, and they certainly want a good experience. I'm not going to say fun. They want a good experience for their game. So Inertia, VoIP, Lighthouse, weapons, ballistic changes, that's a lot. That is a lot of stuff coming, in addition to all the other stuff they'll sprinkle in. And like I mentioned, I really expect we're going to see some quest adjustments and updates. Obviously, we're going to have introduction for and adjustments to with daily quests, operational quests, and tasks that are in the game. So I think all of that is going to make for 12.12 being a very interesting wipe and a very, very exciting and interesting patch with a ton of content. So I'm going to wrap this one up here. Certainly rambled enough, but wanted to give some feedback on Ballistic Changes, what I think is coming, as well as just a little bit of kind of rumor mill and just the what's going on in the game and what's upcoming to get really, really excited about. Again, very, very much crossing my fingers for around a Christmas time patch and wipe, and that will lead to a ton of content on the channel. So I'm going to put the plug in here. If you enjoyed this one or you found it helpful, like, comment, subscribe. Thank you so much. Do subscribe to the channel. I would really appreciate that. Costs you nothing, and it certainly helps us. It helps you to be able to see future videos. We are going to continue with a lot of the series that we're doing now, which has gotten a ton of great feedback. We have a hardcore series. I've got an escape series, which I've got some good ideas for adjustments for 12.12 and how we're going to do that maybe a little bit differently, as well as some other fun challenge series, and certainly a lot of informational stuff that we're going to see to come out as well with the patch. So fun opportunities with VoIP and some of those other things, as well as testing out some of the new guns and the mechanics and features in the game, and finding some of the new goodies, because I'm sure there's going to be other changes. So like, comment, subscribe. Again, do appreciate all the support on the channel. In addition, we do stream over on Twitch Fridays and Saturdays, 8:30 Eastern Standard Time. So if you want to come join us, we'd love to have you, be able to chat with you, talk about what's upcoming, and when the patch hits, certainly talk about how the wipe is going for us, and what we think of this game after 12.12. So we also have a Twitter and a Discord, all those links in the description, and we would appreciate some follows and joining our community and just sticking with us. With that, Doc, Average Gamer guys, as always, thanks for watching. Catch you in the next Escape from Tarkov video. Peace.